Hello again. In the early summer of 1914, nobody had the least idea that the biggest war ever seen was about to engulf the world. All they saw were various unrelated incidents and minor confrontations in Europe, which would resolve themselves after a few skirmishes in the Balkans, probably. After all, the Balkan War had been fought the previous year and had resulted in nothing much. Battles between Serbs, Turks, a little aggression in Bulgaria. I'm guessing that few readers will even have heard of the Balkan War of 1912 to 1913. When trouble flared again in the Balkans, the following year in 1914, nobody took any notice, even when an archduke was assassinated there. Stuff like that was always happening in the Balkans. The Balkans were a bit like the Middle East today, in that somebody was always fighting somebody in that part of the world. Of course, in retrospect, it is obvious to us that this was really the world gearing up towards a huge war. The First World War, in fact. The situation is looking very much the same today. Although there's no formal alliance between the various blocs, we know that Iran has been supplying Russia with drones so that Russia can prosecute its war against the Ukraine, and that Russia will consequently back up Iran if there is a war. We know too that China is part of the same axis. In the same way, Britain and the United States are backing Israel. Slowly the pieces are moving into place for a confrontation between the East and the West. It's always a bad sign when Britain decides to guarantee the security of some small country which has nothing at all to do with it. In 1914 they did this with Belgium, and then look what happened. They did the same thing in 1939 when they promised that they would stand by Poland if that country was attacked. Remind me what happened next. Now we find that the United States and Britain both seem to have got themselves into exactly the same position regarding another small country which is under threat. None of this bodes well, and it's easy to see how if there's a little miscalculation, the situation could very quickly turn into a war involving a dozen countries and then twice that number in no time at all. It is an interesting time in which to live. Of course, nobody in 1914 said to themselves when they heard about the posturing of the Austro-Hungarian Empire or the strong diplomatic language France was using, said to themselves, "Gosh, I hope the First World War doesn't start this week." I wish we could be around to see what the history books written in 50 years or more will have to say about these times of ours, and whether they will claim that all the bad things which we are about to see were inevitable, and that we should all have known what was coming next.